Hi there. I'm Jerry Detweiler, Education Director for NAV.
Hi, I'm Ty Kiesel. I'm the Director of Content for NAV. We're really excited to be here and thank you, SCORE, for inviting us.
Yeah, we're thrilled to be a sponsor at NAV of SCORE. We know the mentors provide so much value to small business owners. And I know Ty is actually a SCORE mentor himself, but I know I've talked about SCORE in so many of my articles. So yes, thank you, SCORE, for this opportunity. So what we want to talk about today is a couple things. First of all, we have a brand new survey just released this morning about small business financing. We want Ty to touch on some of the significant findings. And then we really want to make it practical for you. So we want to bring you 5 things that you can do to prepare your business for financing or to get better financing in 2021. So Ty, do you want to kick it off with the survey findings?
Sure. This fall, we surveyed 500 different small businesses. And as all of you are aware, not every small business is the same. And so we divided them up into categories: very small businesses with companies that basically only have a handful of employees, small businesses that are a little bit bigger, up to 100 employees, and then we're calling them mid-sized businesses in the survey that are over that. And what we found is that there were a lot of people looking for financing in 2020 over and above the Paycheck Protection Program, and that their experiences were all different. And so we talk about that in the survey. And basically, it's difficult to get financing, but it's particularly difficult for the smallest small businesses. And we noticed that for the smaller small businesses to find success, they really kind of have to hit above their weight, if you know what I mean, or hit above their class. They have to act like a big business in the way they do their bookkeeping and accounting and all of those kind of things to actually be able to qualify, which we also saw last March and April and May with the PPP program. The better prepared small businesses were able to get PPP financing than those that were not. So those are the two big takeaways. And 96% of the small businesses that applied for financing in 2020 plan on doing so again in 2021, which is no surprise to us, because they're going to need capital to fund business operations in the coming year plus. So if you want to read more about the survey, because there's lots of good information in there that we haven't touched this morning, there's a link below. Click on it. There's an article that we've published that kind of goes through all of the survey results, so you can see just exactly what your peers, based upon a category that matches what kind of business you are, experienced.
Yeah, and that's a perfect segue to what we want to talk about today, which is ways to qualify for financing and to get better financing, because many small business owners do struggle with this idea of getting some kind of financing for their business. So, Ty, I think we should just hop into some tips. Do you want to start us off with a tip for small business owners who are looking for financing?
You bet. I kind of alluded to this in the survey, but basically, small business owners, as a general rule, the smallest small business owners need to get their financial house in order. You need to be able to to demonstrate that you've got an income and that your business is healthy and that you have the cash flow that you need. And I spoke with a lender several years ago, and he said something to me that has resonated and makes a lot of sense. He said, if I can tell more about a business's financial health by looking at the financial reports than the business owner, I'm not going to give the business owner a loan. And so I don't think you have to be an accountant. You don't have to have that complete mindset, but you do need to understand what the numbers are telling you. And this is a place where I'm a big advocate of having a more consultative relationship with your accountant. Most of us, and me included, when I was a small business owner, I thought about my accountant at tax time. When I filed my quarterly tax reports or when I did my annual tax reports. But I think that next to you, your accountant knows more about your business than anybody else, and he or she knows it from a different perspective than you. One of my best friends is a CPA, and we used to talk about this all the time. And when I first started my business, I would look at him and think, oh man, this is just a bunch of accounting gobbledygook. You're trying to justify what you do as an accountant. And I had to learn the hard way that, some of these things you really have to pay attention to. You really have to be on top of. And he used to talk about how every business needs a profit expert, someone who can tie everything together with production and sales and marketing and accounting. And I came to appreciate that accounting is the hub that helps you understand everything else that's going on into your business. And the person that understands everything that's going on is the profit expert. And, hopefully in a perfect world, that's you. You should be the profit expert. And if you don't feel like you're there yet, set some time aside with your accountant or your bookkeeper and have them explain to you just exactly what the reports mean, what the information is telling them, so that you can learn. And I would even go so far as to say, if your accountant is not willing to sit down with you and teach you about what the numbers are saying, maybe you need a different accountant, because I see that relationship as a real synergistic partnership that will help you build the most profitable business that you can. And the first thing a lender is going to want to know is that you have a handle on the financial health of your business.
I can't agree more, Ty. And I also had my own business for over a decade. And I was like you, accounting was for taxes. And we saw this so clear with PPP and EIDL, where borrowers were having a hard time applying because they didn't have the financial data they needed from their bookkeeping. But I'll give another quick plug here. Your SCORE mentor, because many times you can get matched with a SCORE mentor who can look at your finances and help you think about those issues about profitability, revenues. How do I get from where I am now to where I want to be? So you're thinking forward instead of, backward, which is often what tax time becomes. So I'm going to jump into tip number 2, and this is closely related to what you just talked about, Ty, and that is that you absolutely must have a business bank account. If you do not have a business bank account and you're not using it exclusively for business related expenses, you need to change that. At NAV, we work with lenders all over the country, and there are some lenders who will not even give you the time of day unless you have a business bank account. And often what they do now, in addition to perhaps asking for copies of business bank statements, is they may even ask to link to your business bank account. They want to see your revenues, the activity of the revenues in your account, and then they also are going to analyze that to determine what you may qualify for. So let me give just a quick couple of tips that relate to this that we see with our NAV customers all the time. One is having that big business bank account. 2 is trying to avoid low balance days. If you're constantly dipping into your overdraft line of credit, or worse, overdrawing your account, that's going to be a big problem with getting financing. And then they want to see deposits coming in from multiple sources. So lenders are hesitant about a business that's relying on 1 or 2 clients, because if that one of those clients goes away, there's not much of a business there. So you ideally want deposits coming in from multiple customers or clients to establish that your business is healthy. So get that business bank account. If you don't know where to start, we have a blog article I can share later from NAV that will give you some ideas. But that's absolutely critical for your business. And by the way, if you have a question, we will be answering questions. So we'll try to keep an eye on that right now. And if you have a question, we'll try to get to it before the end of the live stream today. So Ty, you want to jump into tip number 3?
You bet. I grew up working in my dad's small business, and he had a philosophy that has stuck with me my entire career. And granted, it's a very conservative philosophy, and it's not something that the loan officer or the sales guy is going to tell you, because I'm going to tell you that there are times when you shouldn't borrow. In fact, I think the optimal way to use borrowed capital, and this is coming from my dad, so it's 100 years old, is if you have an opportunity to boost the ROI of a project or a product or something like that, to generate additional profits, that's a great reason to borrow. And the other reason is if you have an opportunity to increase the value of your business. Those are the two primary reasons that I think you can justify borrowing, particularly today when borrowed capital can be so expensive. A few years ago, I was at an Amazon sellers conference, and I was sitting on a panel with a half a dozen other lenders. And one of the questions from the audience was, how much should I borrow and when should I borrow? And one of the panelists said, you borrow as much as you can, whenever you can, because you never know when you're going to have another chance to borrow. And that is not the answer I would give you. Borrow what you need, and only borrow what you need, because regardless of where you get the capital, there are costs associated with it, and borrowing can be very expensive. So you want to make sure that you don't overborrow, because that can put you into just as much trouble as being cash poor. So the first question I think you should ask if you're looking for a loan is, what do I need the loan for? Identify your loan purpose. Make sure you know why you're borrowing, because that answer will help you answer all the other questions, like how much money do I need? What type of terms can I work with? And I kind of liken it to buying a car versus buying a home. Most people I know wouldn't be able to buy a new home with an auto loan type loan term. And most people wouldn't buy a new car with a 30-year mortgage, because it would make the car too expensive. So, if you know why you're borrowing and you know how much you need, then you can determine, is it a short-term need I'm trying to fill, or is it a long-term need? If you're borrowing, for example, to purchase quick turnaround inventory, it might not make sense to get a 5-year term loan to purchase inventory that you're going to sell, and it's going to rotate out of your business in 5 months. Because what happens next year when you need to buy inventory? You're already tied up. You don't have the access to capital that you would if you had got like a 6-month loan or a 3-month loan, or leveraged a line of credit or something. So, borrow what you need. Don't borrow any more than what you need, and make sure that it's generating value in your business.
Yeah, and I'll add to that. I do think there is value in looking at getting, for example, a line of credit lined up before you need it. Because one thing I have seen, and we certainly saw this year, I used to say in my sessions, I used to say, you want to line up that financing before you need it in case there's a crisis or an opportunity, you're not scrambling. Well, crisis, with a capital C, came along this year, and many small business owners were scrambling. So one thing you can do very responsibly is to line up that line of credit. So when you need to tap it, those funds are available, but you don't need to borrow what you don't need to borrow yet, because with a line of credit, you can borrow what you need, pay it back, and pay interest on only the amount outstanding, and then go back to the well. So that's certainly something that can be beneficial. So I'm going to throw in tip number 4. And again, if you have questions about financing your business, we'd love to talk about those in the chat. So tip number 4 is to really scrutinize your business and personal credit. The Federal Reserve every year does something called the Small Business Credit Survey, and it's a survey of small businesses with 1 to 499 employees. And they ask them, questions about the financing they got, where they got it, what frustrations they had, a more expanded version of what we just published in our survey today at NAV. And one of the questions they ask is, what did you use in terms of credit to qualify? Was it business credit only? Was it personal credit only? Or was it a combination of business and personal credit? And when you add the business credit only and the business and personal credit together, business credit only is about 12%. You get 60%. So 60% of small business owners are using at least some form of business credit to get financing. The rest are just relying on personal credit. So both are important. You will see all kinds of things on the internet that are going to tell you that you don't have to worry about personal credit, just build business credit, you can get everything you need. And I'm here to say that you need both, because you don't know which one the lender's going to check. There are certain types of financing where lenders will primarily rely on business credit or may rely primarily on your business revenues rather than credit. But if you want the widest number of options available to you and you want to try to get into better financing, having strong business and personal credit is essential. And in my experience, most business owners don't know anything about their business credit. They haven't checked it. Well, we've done surveys, it's usually about 75% of them. And when I do a workshop, usually 90% have never seen their business credit. But these business credit reports are used all over the country. There's just not much regulation with them. So no one has to get your permission to check your business credit. No one has to tell you if they checked your business credit. No one has to give you a free business credit report, etc. So that's one of the things that we do at NAV is give business owners truly free business credit and personal credit in one dashboard. So you certainly can check your business credit there. And I don't want you to ignore your personal credit. If your personal credit needs some work, that's fine. You can still start to build business credit, but you want you want to be on parallel tracks working on both so that you can get better financing.
For most small business owners, your personal credit is always going to be a part of the conversation in one form or another. For a lot of lenders, where your personal credit score falls is kind of a go, no go metric that helps them to determine if they're even going to want to talk to you. For example, the bank and the credit union, they want to see credit scores in the 700s. The SBA's threshold is, I think, like 650. So if your credit score is below 650, the SBA won't talk to you. And there are other lenders that they'll work with you if you have a lower credit score. Many online lenders will go as low as 600, but there are even still lenders that will go less than that. But your personal credit score will always be part of the conversation. And the good news is it's human nature to positively impact the things we pay attention to on a regular basis. So in my opinion, the single most important thing you can do to build a strong business credit profile, and I say profile rather than credit score because your business credit is really a collection of a lot of scores. And the way to do it is to regularly monitor. And I used to think that maybe it was 4 times a year, quarterly, I should look at my business credit report or I should look at my personal credit report. And now I'm convinced that monthly is not too frequently. I've had a personal relationship with Experian for many, many years. I get an update from them every time something changes on my credit report, and I get a complete look at my FICO score every single month. And it maybe it sounds oversimplistic, but because I'm paying attention to it, I'm doing things that make my personal credit score strong. And you need to do that for your personal credit score and your business credit profile, because there's a synergy between the two that Jerry was describing that are going to make a difference. And if you were to come to me as a brand new business and say, I can't get a loan, nobody wants to lend to me. If you're in that first couple of years of business, the thing to focus on is not necessarily getting a small business loan, but building your credit. And I hear the question all the time, how am I going to build my credit? I need credit to build credit. Well, there are some things you can do. Number one, work with your vendors. Most vendors are more than happy to give their good customers 30-day or 60-day terms. And I know it's not a small business loan, but if you make your periodic payments on time and they report your good credit history to the business credit bureaus, that's building credit. And you'll find that your creditors, the vendors you work with, the suppliers you work with, will be some of the friendliest creditors you'll have. If you're in a bind one month, you'd be able to reach out to them typically and say, hey, I need an extra 10 days or whatever. And they're usually very willing to accommodate that. The other thing you can do is apply for a business credit card. Business credit cards compared to a small business loan are relatively easy to qualify for. They're often going to look at your personal credit score primarily. So if you have a good to excellent personal credit score, it's a piece of cake, basically. I probably shouldn't say that. It's much easier to get a business credit card. And if that business credit card reports to the business credit bureaus, it's going to help you build your business credit too, so that you'll be able to rely less on your personal score and give the lender something more to look at that demonstrates that you are a good credit risk. And it might not guarantee that you'll get a loan, but it definitely will keep your loan application from going to the bottom of the pile.
Yeah, we've got a couple of questions here that I want to make sure we address. Diane's asking if the SBA is going to continue assistance in 2021. COVID is still killing my business. And Diane, we really feel for you. So there's two programs largely at the national level, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, which is part of the SBA's disaster loan program. And that program has been around for many years. And the SBA expanded it nationally because of the national COVID disaster. Now, my understanding is the current round of EIDL loans are set to close at the end of December. If I'm wrong about that, make sure you put a note in the comments there. But there is discussion on Capitol Hill also about extending the Paycheck Protection Program loan. So right now, PPP loans it is closed, even though there was money left by the time it closed. There is discussion in Congress about making more PPP money available through the next stimulus plan. So I would encourage you as a small business owner to reach out to your elected officials in Washington and let them know what your business is still struggling with. They need to hear from you so that they understand how crucial and urgent it is for your business. And I know sometimes you feel like that may not be going anywhere, but I worked on Capitol Hill in a senator's office, and I can tell you, they're keeping track of what constituents are talking about, and they're sharing that with their legislators. And so, yes, it's a big negotiation, of course, but make your voice heard. And I'm optimistic that we'll see some more money. Now, in addition, there's a lot of COVID resources on the SCORE website, and there may be local programs or state programs available to you. And so what I've been telling small business owners is you want to be on the mailing list for your local SCORE office, because they're going to alert you to things that may come up in your state or your county. Grant programs, for example, are still launching. I still get notices every week of grant programs launching for small businesses, and they're going to be on the cutting edge of that information. So make sure you're on the mailing list for your SCORE Center and for SCORE itself to get that latest information. And then we did have a question about credit. How do we know what things make our personal credit strong? And that could be a whole webinar just on credit. We've done a few webinars for SCORE, and we did talk about credit strategies in one of our previous SCORE webinars with SCORE. So you can take a look at that previous information, but I would say the top two factors that are going to go into any personal credit score are going to be how you manage your debt and your payment history. So making sure that, especially in this time, why things are really rocky for so many people, that you're trying to at least make the minimum payments on your debt. And if not, you get on a formal assistance plan with the lender. So formal forbearance or deferment, and you ask them, how will that be reported? Because the debt, yes, I know a lot of people are struggling with debt right now, but you can pay down debt, and as soon as you do, your credit score changes. But if you start missing payments, those late payments can stay on for 7 years. So reach out to your lenders and try to renegotiate or negotiate some sort of arrangement so that those accounts don't show late payments. I will give one little word of caution. If you're doing that on the business side, some lenders are going to need to see that you're caught up in making regular payments before they will lend to you. So if you're still in a renegotiated or a negotiated payment plan, they may not be willing to lend to you until you can get back onto your normal payment schedule. But at the same time, that would be better than missing payments. You don't want to default on any kind of loan, business or personal, because that really, really hurts your credit scores.
Whatever you do, don't ignore it and feel like it's going to go away. I can guarantee you that your lender does not want to foreclose on your pizza restaurant. They want to make it work as bad as you do. because they want you to make payments. And if they tack them on to the end of the term of your loan, or do something to give you a little leeway, they would much rather do that than have you default. And so don't ignore it thinking it's going to go away. Make sure that as soon as you know you have issues, that you reach out to your lender, and most of the time they're going to be motivated to work with you.
Yeah, when you were talking about building business credit, Ty, one resource, the vendor accounts that you mentioned, those are a great resource for a business that's trying to build business credit, including brand new and startup businesses. And we do have I have an article, I'll share it in the chat, that lists the names of vendors that are pretty easy to get. They don't check personal credit, they report to business credit, and that may be one way to start your business credit building journey. Now, we had a point number 5. So we promised 5 tips. So why don't you lead off with that, Ty?
I remember when I was younger, there was an old country western ballad that went something like, "Looking for love in all the wrong places." And one of the biggest takeaways from the survey we just did was that the vast majority of small business owners, regardless of what size they are, the first place they visit is the local bank. And whether it's a national branch or a regional branch or strictly a local branch. And unfortunately, for particularly the smallest small businesses, that's not the place where the odds are going to be the best that you're going to get the financing that you need. And I think a lot of small business owners struggle because they're looking for financing in all the wrong places. And, from my experience over the last 10 to 15 years, there are more financing options available today than ever before. And that even means in the midst of this pandemic, there are more financing options available. When I was in business, it was the bank. And I relied on the relationship I had with my banker. And I could go in and get the money I needed based upon a conversation and a signature. And that just doesn't happen anymore. Online lenders are anxious to make loans to small business owners. Equipment financing is another great option, particularly in times like this, because it's fully collateralized. It's a little bit easier to qualify for, and it will free up cash flow that you can use in other parts of your business that require cash and that you can't borrow for. So equipment financing is available. Online lending is available. Don't ignore invoice financing. That's another place where you can access short-term capital. But those places, the challenge with these alternatives to the bank is they will likely be more expensive financing. But if you're borrowing to improve ROI or add value, you can do the math and see if those numbers all make sense for you. But I would just say, be willing to look outside the comfort zone. If you have a great credit profile, you can go into the bank and the bank will still want to work with you. If you have a less than perfect credit history as a business owner or personally, the bank is probably not where you're going to find the most success. So let's start looking for financing in all the right places. And that way you'll have access to the borrowed capital you need to fuel growth or fund other business initiatives.
Yes. And I want to add that if you can get financing from your bank or credit union, you should. It's going to be the best money you're going to get. We just know from our experience talking to so many small business owners that many of them will find that a challenge, especially for younger businesses or businesses that have been challenged this year with their revenues dropping or other issues. So the 3 main factors that most lenders are going to look at are going to be time in business. They love to see 2 years or more in business. Some even want 3 right now due to the COVID crisis because they're not counting 2020 as a real year for the business. So time and business, revenues. So that's where I talked about them linking or checking your business bank account balances and activity to see how your bank account looks. And then it's going to be credit. And it could be personal and or credit scores. And I should clarify one thing on SBA loans. So we promised a bonus. So we're going to give you these bonuses in just a second. But on the SBA, with the exception of disaster loans, doesn't make loans. It guarantees loans. So it sets the parameters for these different programs you've heard. And I know it sounds confusing at first, 7A, 504, microloan, what are all these different SBA loans that you're talking about and how do I qualify? But we have created an e-guide, and we did this in partnership with SCORE, and it is on the SCORE website for you to download. And it's going to explain the main SBA loan programs and what they offer in terms of the amount of money, what the uses are for those funds, and then some tips about qualifying for SBA loans. So with an SBA loan that doesn't come directly from the SBA, so that would be mostly disaster loans, the lenders are going to have to follow the SBA guidelines, and then they can add their own guidelines on top of that as long as they don't discriminate on a prohibited basis. So for example, with credit, the SBA guidelines typically say acceptable credit, and the SBA will sort of describe what acceptable credit may be. And then the lender may say, you know what, for us, we're not going to take an SBA loan with a credit score of less than the owner's personal credit score of 680 or 690 or 700 or whatever it may be, because they still want to minimize their risk. It's not 100% guarantee from the SBA. So they, again, like Ty said, they don't want you defaulting on that loan. So the tip here is that just because you don't qualify from an SBA loan from one lender doesn't necessarily mean you don't qualify for an SBA loan with another lender. Now, if there's a disqualifier, if you're in an industry, for example, that the SBA prohibits, or if you're too big, you don't meet the size standards for your industry, then you're not getting an SBA loan. But I think there's often a misconception because people think it's coming from the SBA that they think, well, if this lender turned me down, that means I'm out of luck. And that may not necessarily be the case. So I would encourage you, if you're thinking SBA, and here's an interesting tidbit I want to share with you real quick. When I was looking at the data from 2020 SBA loans, the most popular program in the SBA loan program is 7A. That's the main flagship program. 17% of the dollars that were funded in fiscal year 2020 in the SBA 7A program went to startup businesses. Now, that's kind of surprising. Now, you will have to have good qualifications because just like Ty said, the lender does not want you defaulting. They don't want to end up in a position where the borrower defaults and they have trouble, collecting on whatever portion is not guaranteed. But there are a variety of programs out there that may be appropriate for your business. So take a look at that e-guide. The second bonus that I wanted to mention was our webinar we did with SCORE, Where's the Money Now? And in that webinar, we went into detail on the different types of financing that are available and what it takes to qualify and some of the pros and cons. So we've been throwing out a lot of terms here, SBA loans and equipment financing and online loans and lines of credit. And if you're thinking, well, I don't know what I qualify for or where I'm going to get that loan or whether it's a good loan for me or not, that webinar will walk you through those basics so you can understand what type of financing might be right for your business.
If this is all, this is pretty overwhelming when you think about it, because back when I was a business owner, there was a one-stop shop for anything like this. And, that's one of the reasons why Jerry and I work for NAV, is because they offer all the credit monitoring information that we've talked about, as well as when you come to NAV, you can share with us what your business looks like, and we can help match you to a small business or a small business lender that is looking for borrowers just like you. And that's about the only sales pitch I'm going to give you. But, we can help you with that. The other thing I would recommend, I've been working with SCORE mentors all across the country for the last 6 or 7 years. And the thing I love about these people is they all have been there and done that before. If you're experiencing a challenge in your business, they've probably dealt with it and resolved it. And you can go to them. It costs you nothing. Why not pick their brain? Why not leverage all of that experience to help you build the best business that you can? I'm a huge fan of what SCORE does. I really admire from Virginia to California. I've met hundreds of SCORE volunteers, and their motivation really is just to help your business. So don't be afraid to talk to your mentor.
Yeah, I think that's probably the number one thing that I see with businesses is that they feel like they need to do everything themselves. And so they don't necessarily get help. They don't really understand what's going on in their accounting, but they don't really ask their accountant to help them. What a big common mistake is they go ahead and they buy QuickBooks and they start setting it up without having any idea how to set up their chart of accounts. They don't even know the basics of how to set that up. And I'm speaking from experience here because I did that in my own business. And so you can find these kinds of resources, working with your SCORE mentor. You do not have to go it alone. And the other thing is, I'll mention the SBA has a variety of resource partners that are available. So you can go to sba.gov/tools and you'll see all kinds of resources there, as well as a locator for offices that may be appropriate. If you're a veteran, for example, a veteran business center might be a good option for you to also explore and see what kind of training is available through them. And these work very synergistically together. So sba.gov/tools, look at the locator and find the resources in your area. I'd love to answer some more questions about financing or credit. Do we have any more questions? We talked about commercial property loans is a question from Lisa. And yes, we do have some partners in the commercial property loan space. So the best way for you to engage with NAV is to go to nav.com/score, sign up for a free NAV account. It's truly free. We don't sell your information to lenders. And then you'll see matches, but you'll also see a phone number. So you can call us and talk to our credit and lending specialists, and they'll walk you through, no pressure, through what might be available. And then also with something like commercial property loans, I'd also encourage you to connect with your SCORE mentor because they're often very geographically specific. So something like commercial property loans and also microloans. Microloans are smaller loans, usually made by nonprofit organizations, often community development financial institutions. And they're all over the country, but they're hard to find because they're so geographically specific. And so that's where, the mentor who is boots on the ground and knows the local landscape can help connect you because they often are very familiar with what's going on in your geographic area. So don't hesitate to reach out for that help as well. All right. Do we have any other questions here? Ty, any other thoughts as you're thinking about this whole lending landscape?
It's a different world than it was just 10 years ago. And I don't think you need to be a financing expert to navigate the new world, but you do need to be a little more savvy in how you approach it. And so if you ask, we talked about the questions you should be asking yourself before you get a loan, before you look for a loan, those are important. And, I can't emphasize enough that the stronger your business credit profile, the stronger your personal credit score, the more focus you give there. It's not a guarantee that you're going to get a loan if you have a good, strong credit profile, but it is going to help you have more options. So you can pick the financing that makes the most sense to you. One of the survey results that differentiated the very smallest businesses from the larger businesses, the smallest businesses, their primary frustration was this paperwork is just such a pain. I can't do it. And the largest businesses were frustrated because they had a hard time finding the right type of financing to meet their need. And you want to be able to start thinking about what's the best financing for me. It's not just I need a loan, I can get a loan. It's what's the financing that makes the most sense to me. And whether it's an SBA loan, which is going to probably be the lowest interest rates you're going to pay, or something else, the more prepared you are, the better off you're going to be in the long run. And one more aside on the SBA, they have a program called Lender Match. So if you go to the SBA site and you're not sure what SBA lenders are in your area, you can actually do a search and it'll pop up with a list of all of the SBA lenders that are lending in your area.
Yeah, let me add a quick tip on the credit side. This week, I was alerted through a credit inquiry on my credit report that I didn't recognize, saw it come up in an alert on Sunday from my NAV account. And I looked at it and said, I did not apply for a anything with this particular bank, called them and they said, oh, thank you for applying for the XX rewards card. I said, I didn't do that. So it turns out there were 2 inquiries on my credit file. And then someone has applied for unemployment in my area based on my name. So working on trying to clear that out as well. Well, there have been, I've received multiple emails last week from the IRS alerting small business owners to an increase in business identity theft. In addition, Krebs on Security, which is one of the most popular security blogs, has also written about the rise in business identity theft. It is possible for someone to steal the identity of your business, apply for credit, buy things in the name of your business, and then never pay it back. The problem is, if you're not monitoring your business credit, you will not find out about this for quite a while. And at the point you find out about it, some serious damage may be done. There was a story on NBC News about an attorney who was a victim of business and personal identity theft at the same time. And he actually had to shut down his law practice for 30 days to deal with it because it was such a overwhelming experience. So if nothing else, monitoring your business and personal credit will alert you to something unusual that happens. And then you can step in and say, hey, that's not me. And do like I did, contact the creditors. I put a fraud alert on my credit file, et cetera, the ID theft affidavit, and just start, putting those pieces in place as soon as possible so that you do not end up, dealing with this for years to come. You have enough to focus on with your business. You don't need to deal with fraud as well. All right. So it says, I see there's a comment about the link I posted. If you type in yourself, nav.com, and this might be the vendors link, nav.com/vendors, that article will pop up. I tried it on my cell phone and it's working. I don't think it's a clickable link that I put in there. So sorry, I was just typing in the URL, the short link for it. It should redirect you to that article with the vendor list. And then if you decide to check out Nav, it's nav.com/score, and that will redirect you to a sign up page for a free Nav account. And again, that doesn't impact your credit scores and will certainly help you figure out what's available. Todd's saying he's been hit with identity theft. Oh, sorry to hear that, Todd. If you get a chance, reach out to me on Facebook. I might want to talk to you more about your experience and what you're doing to resolve that. So we have to alert other business owners because we don't want them to have to deal with this too often. Businesses
are actually more susceptible, according to the experts, than personal.
Yeah. If you're not checking, you won't catch it, right? So then it takes that much longer to clear it up. All right. So I think we've covered it. Ty, do we have any other closing comments that you'd like to make?
Hey, thanks for having us here. I hope this information was valuable to you. These are one of the things we love to do, is to share information with small business owners, because data drives decisions, information drives decisions. And the more information you have, the better able you're going to be to make those decisions that will help your business grow. So thank you very much. And thanks again to SCORE.
Yes, thanks so much for SCORE, and be sure to check out the our page on the SCORE website with the webinars that I mentioned. And in January, we have a really exciting program coming up on getting a small business grant. So I'm super excited about that presentation because I know grants have been really essential to so many businesses this year, and we want to help you identify those opportunities in 2021. So we wish you all the best over the holiday season. We know things are tough for many businesses. Get the help you need. Use the resources that you find at SCORE and at the SBA Resource Partners. And we will do our best to try to answer questions about credit and financing and help your business be successful. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.